This episode is brought to you by listeners like you, our intergalactic fuel, and the boost behind this mic. Thanks for supporting our cosmic journey through the universe of sci-fi. Here's a taste of what's ahead. Spaceship, satellite, whatever you want to call it. It's almost like a spaceship satellite in a one, right? Because it's housing a lot of human beings on board, right? And we can see that basically the corporation, them control everything, right? Down to the way how the autopilot works. And we will talk more about that, right? Yeah, that happened. You're not going to want to miss this one.
Prepare for warp speed as we embark on a voyage through the vast expanse of science fiction in movies and television series. From distant planets to alien civilization, we delve into the hearts of the unknown, unraveling the tales that have captured audiences for generations. Get ready to unlock the secrets of the universe on Flix.
Greetings, fellow sci-fi and fantasy lovers. Welcome to Flix, where we explore the TV shows and movies that shape our imaginations. I'm Andre Bonner, and today's episode, we're looking for love, loneliness, and the future of humanity in WALL-E. Eva? I'll be honest, the first time I watched this film, I didn't even finish it. But even then, I could tell something wasn't quite right with the way Eve was locked into her directive. There was more going on beneath the surface. This story explores something unexpected. Love between two sentient AI beings whose programming initially brings them together. What starts a mission parameters slowly becomes something deeper. Through a series of circumstances, we watch their affection grow. Not because they were told to, but because they chose to. Meanwhile, humanity's evolution has taken a different path. Rather than carried for the planet they were given, they abandoned it. Comfort replaced responsibility. Convenience replaced stewardship. And so, the human race drifted into space, a consequence of long-term neglect. Ironically, it takes two robots, bound by duty but moved by connection, to remind humanity of what home truly means. Their bond becomes the catalyst that helps humans reclaim the earth they left behind. Sometimes it takes the creations to save the creators. These are just some of my personal insights and interpretations of WALL-E, including some favorite moments, themes, and characters. So, just getting right into the film, in the 29th century, Earth has become very inhospitable, right? And I mean, when they show the close-up view of the Earth, you can actually see the amount of garbage in the atmosphere, the upper atmosphere in the orbit of Earth, right? Which is a real problem that we're facing, that There's a lot of junk that is, old satellites and parts of spacecraft that have been launched into orbit, and the stages are basically left to float in the atmosphere, right? So yeah, they're basically just circling Earth, and some of them end up burning up in the upper atmosphere at times, but other times, yeah, it usually does take up a whole heap of things, right? We also see that on planet Earth, it is garbage all over the place, right? Not that planet Earth is garbage, but the way how these humans have treated the planet, it's you know garbage all over the place, right? I mean, when I initially heard about the movie and might have, skimmed through the movie a little bit, because at the time it never interested me. But I thought that it would have been something, some apocalypse kind of thing, like, some nuclear war or something like that. But essentially, it's just garbage all over the place. And they weren't cleaning up at all, because there's no way that the earth could be, like that, in such a way. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it might have been other things as well. So, correcting my earlier statement, it might just be some other things happening, like nuclear war and stuff. But in addition to that, them never take care of Earth any at all. So it's basically become, the way how they show, and they're doing this film to basically show how humanity has basically become so consumerism, is that the word? Consumeristic. Corporate greed has taken over to that point where they just don't know how to take care of the environment any at all. Which is kind of like what is happening now, in reality, that, we continue to have those issues. Yes, there are agencies and governments working together to try and lessen some of the impact, but we are here still have to be discussing it, because it doesn't seem like it is being taken seriously, especially by, those corporate heads, that has become wealthy off, using and not disposing properly of some of the things that they need to. Yeah. And they don't even look like them even or try to figure it out, because the less money them can spend on doing those things, the more money they can put in their pockets. All right, rant over. So essentially, humanity basically find themselves evacuating to outer space. I guess it's a mega corporation again that supplies the spaceship, satellite, whatever you want to call it. It's almost like a spaceship satellite in a one, right? Because it's housing a lot of human beings on board, right? And we can see that basically the corporation, them control everything, right? Down to the way how the autopilot works. And we will talk more about that, right, as we go on. If you haven't watched the film yet, go and watch it, right? Come on now, right? You only come over here to hear my analysis and my interpretations of how I feel the film go and how it could have worked a different way. Anyways, so basically they just have robots all over the place. Again, I have to keep interrupting myself here, because this is so much in parallel what's going on, right? And these robots are AI based, right? They are sentient, right? Because they have an awareness of themselves, it seems. Yeah. They do carry out them primary directive, whatever it is, whether it is to clean up trash like Wally, or, to do other things, right? Eve comes along a little later, but Eve's directive is to find something very important, right? Yeah. I don't want to, not give you that little piece, right? So of course the movie's named Wally, and so it centers on this robot, right? So we get to see this one robot of many types, because it's basically this version of Wally is, I guess, the one version that enjoys show tunes and enjoys acting like it's human in a way, right? Because, you know, it collects a lot of stuff, some of the garbage that it's supposed to be compacting and discarding. Yeah, it kind of collects some of the stuff where it find interesting and have it in a little what you call it now, like a little storage area. It's garage or so. That's where it basically lives. Yeah. So yeah, it has been doing this apparently for who knows how long, because it's apparently probably probably about for the 700 years. It could have been online since humans left, and now, at the point of the film, we are seeing where it is, at its height. So many of the other robots probably would have broken down, and this is the last one, right? Probably operating in a particular way, didn't get destroyed at any point by natural phenomena, because that's the only thing can happen now, right? Or being crushed by a pile of garbage, because you have literal piles of garbage, like, I mean, skyscraper high, you know what I'm saying? So anything could happen, right? But this one survived, or seems to have been active all this time, right? And apparently it's because of it being active so long, me feel it developed this personality of being closely, related to humans, can understand the little nuances. Yeah, so what it does, it's smart enough to recognize, hey, we can use other parts from other robots and build or fix myself, right? So it has been doing that, right? Oh yeah, and I have a pet cockroach. I can't leave that one out, because the pet cockroach goes with him everywhere. Right? So him, I mean, Wally, the robot, and him pet cockroach, them basically have been like that for how long, right? And almost like companions. So of course, one day, out of the blues, while Wally had some routine compacting of trash and collecting some of them interesting objects, right? There is an arrival of a ship, right? Which Wally, is in like a child, and I will compare him, compare it to a child, right? In its curiosity, wanting to know what this thing is, because he's never seen this thing before. It's coming from the sky, landing, right? And ended up almost being crushed by the said spaceship. So when time they, if you see how him dig underground for hide, because it literally land on top of where he was, that when him lift up his head, right, him bang against one of the foot of the landing gear, I guess, of this spaceship. Now we see the spaceship let out this armature, which contains some kind of compartment, I guess, like a little thing, and inside it is Eve, right? The robot, right? And it seems to be very sleek in design. I'm looking for good words to give for a robot, right? It looks sleek and designed, so it kind of look like one, one, and I guess because it's supposed to be mirroring what a woman would be like, so it kind of looks sleek. It It has a display with some things that look like eyes. It it has arms that can fold out and fold in. It can change into a weapon because it fires initially, not knowing what is following it. Because Wally, they there, just a kind of look from a distance and a watch, but not getting too close. But apparently, Eve is able to detect his presence, and yeah, she'll unload and until she meets the cockroach, and that's Hal, the name of the cockroach that Wally has. And Wally basically is like, he introduced himself, and all up to this point, of course, if you haven't watched the film again, we'll watch it, but there aren't any spoken dialogue between the characters, right? Neither Wally nor Eve. What we see is just basically actions and the way how, and this is why this film is so interesting, after I rewatch it, and actually look at some of the scenes, I'm realizing that these characters, they basically they're connecting just like any humans. You meet somebody and it's like, hey, who are you? And I mean, Eve did say something, but Wally did not respond, because I guess he doesn't know how to speak, or he hasn't had to use that ability any at all, because he later on speaks, right? And we'll get there, right? But yeah, at this point, she's like, who are you? And he not respond, you know? And so she goes on carrying out her duties, as if she don't see him. Wally, watch her basically is like, like a love struck brother, you know what I'm saying? Anybody who has been love struck, male or female, you would look at someone and be like, in awe, right? So Wally, I don't remember exactly what happened, but it's like him make a connection with her. Oh, I remember now. So she was, and that's Eve now, ended up going and flying nearby a magnetic device on a ship. The magnetic device basically hold her, lock her in and thing, you know what I'm saying? And to get away from it, she discharges her weapon, which causes a chain reaction that ends up toppling these ships. And there's no water, right? So it's not like they ship them in the water. So them just toppling over on dry ground. Wally's watching everything, and Eve end up noticing what she just did, right? It's almost like, oops, that kind of way where a human being would just react like, oops, yeah. And Wally just looking like, okay then. So as she's standing there looking, basically, and when I say standing, she's more like hovering, because that's how she doesn't have feet, she hovers, right? So she's there hovering, and Wally take time roll over to her, because him have a set of tractor feet, tractor wheels, and rolls slowly towards her, almost like, when somebody are trying to get close to you and them like looking away, but they're making sure that them getting close enough to you. Yeah. So he gets close to her, and she just turn around quickly and ready again, like she go blast him, and and then she realizes it's him, and it's like, almost like, who are you? I think that if still not really say anything, and she's, I think she says she named Eve, right? And she ask him, who he is, and he's saying name Wally. She recognized, I think, his name on the chassis of the body, say Wally, and she's like, Wally. and then he might try to pronounce her name, and this is where the ongoing joke goes on throughout the film. Him call her Eva. Yeah, he's like, Eva, Eva. So yeah, there's an ongoing joke because him still for the whole of it, he never really call her Eve per se until like later on down. But yeah, then end up, him carry her back to his pad, I guess. Like a human being. You know what I'm saying? Like carry her back to where he stay and stuff with him with all of the things. And I'm sure all of the interesting objects that him find, some of the things them where she find interest, where him find interesting for sure. And she's like, okay. And she take a Rubik's Cube from him give her give her a Rubik's Cube, and the Rubik's Cube gets solved by the time him turn back around because she solve it. They get her one light bulb, and the light bulb light up in her hand. Yeah. I think give her one lighter, and she light up the lighter. And that, it just seem to she just take an interest in everything now afterwards, guys, And I'm not sure him little show tunes. He has this video that he has been, it's a little song that was playing. Many people might know the song, some people don't, but it's from one of those films where they're like singing in the rain kind of thing, and the hat goes off and stuff. But yeah, it's the kind of connection that they're having there, And then he shows her a plant, and Eva takes a plant and deactivates. But she deactivates, and we can see that there's a little side on chest plate, I guess, that has like a flower logo, and it's glowing, and it seems to be a homing beacon to call back the shuttle, right? Wally, of course, doesn't recognize that Dataguan. He doesn't know what's happened to his friend. He can't communicate with her anyways. He make sure that she comfortable as best as he can. If him go out, forgot do him usual trash compacting and collecting, him carry her with him. If there's a storm, he make sure that she's safe. We even see rain a fall and lightning a flash, and he take out umbrella and him cover the two of them, and him get struck by lightning, and him still, take care of her and thing. No, at that point, I'm like, all the feels come now, because me actually I watch it now and I say, the man, if this was a man, right? If this robot was a man, he is a really good man because he might make sure him take care of him friend, right? All throughout, even though him can't communicate with her and she can't tell him anything, right? Yeah. I must mention that when they had met and them kind of had a talk in them ways, she mentioned she has a directive, but the directive is classified. Of course, Wally did tell her theme directive, which is the compact trash, right? Him can actually show her without actually telling her. But yeah, so he doesn't know up to that point. Now, important to note that right there. So we then see the ship that would have dropped her off initially coming back. Now, Wally would have not been at the exact location where she was, but he was around, and he sees the ship coming back, and so him know say, you know what I'm saying, the you don't know what have to go away by ourselves, so he end up on the ship, and not on the ship as in going into it, I mean like literally hanging off of the ship. The ship leave the atmosphere, and there is Wally in space. And I guess because he has never been there, he sees the Earth. He sees outer space for the first time. Isn't that awesome, right? Well, if you like that part, you're gonna like the rest of it. So, we'll be right back after these messages. Somewhere out there in the quiet between signals, this podcast is still drifting. There's no big corporation powering it, no shiny autopilot, just love for the stories and the hope that someone's listening on the other side. Every listen feels like a light blinking back. Every follow feels like proof we're not alone out here. And when you share it with a friend or a colleague, it's like sending another probe into the stars, looking for a connection. If this podcast meant something for you, if it made you pause or smile or feel that small spark of wonder, help it keep floating. Because even in the vast silence of space, one signal can still find another. The ship that I mentioned before that has the humans on it, it's a starliner basically. It's almost like a cruise liner for space, right? And it has all of the comforts too, because the passengers, they are well fed, so them have restaurants and and all of these things, because they have been living in practically zero gravity for so long. They have evolved. Human beings have evolved, and their bodies are big and gelatinous, right? No fat shaming over here, right? So they have to be confined to some recliners or some recliner looking vehicles, because they're able to control it. They can glide, right? Basically hovers throughout the ship, right? And they have these lines basically that I guess it's almost like a maglev kind of thing, right? So what happens next is quite interesting, because when Wally goes on board, because he's coming from Earth and he'll be coming with material that is considered contaminated by the ship's computer, and at a great extent, the robots that are responsible for cleaning and taking care of the passengers and so on. So as soon as they get there, Wally has to hide, of course. Eve gets a nice little scrub down and thing, and is sent to the captain, right? Now, the captain has always been reliant on his AI autopilot, right? Which is nicknamed Auto, right? Which has been piloting a ship, making sure everything runs the way it's supposed to run on the ship and so on, right? Yeah. The captain hasn't needed to do anything before. So he was very unprepared for a positive probe response, right? That's Eve being a probe with a plant, right? So in this particular circumstance, protocol dictates that they put the plant into the hollow detector, and that will trigger a hyper jump that will take them back to Earth. Right? Sounds so nice, and the movie almost done right there. So, but when the captain inspect Eve's storage compartment, right, where the plant is supposed to be, the plant is missing. No, of course, because Wally, would have seemed so interested in Eve initially and stuff. Eve like, I wonder if Wally, because she knows a Wally that they know, right? So she's like, Wally, and that's how she emotes, right? Wally. So, it kind of sounds like that annoying friend that be like, Wally, So, Wally not knowing what happened either and unable to explain, just be like, I don't know, but the reaction is like, yeah. So, because them think it's a faulty probe, right? With the assistance of Arthur, who basically say, yeah, man, just send her go to diagnostics, but then take care of her, right? While he intervene and him also get taken there as well, right? Now, when they reach to the diagnostic section where all the other faulty robots are, the ones that are deemed faulty, and I'm air quoting as I speak, just letting you know, they go there and Wally causes the faulty robots to be released, right? And this now cause one ship-wide notification for go out so that him and Eve, right, rogue bots, right? So everybody's like scared because Wally and Eve, they are thing there, right? Backtracking a little bit because there's something interesting that happens, right? So Wally might have met a few humans on his way to with Eve to the captain's deck. He introduced himself, right? And so they know say him. And in doing so, he inadvertently, because most of the humans them have been living their life, and this again is another parallel to our reality. Them head in a them screen, right? And these are some hollow screens that they have in front of them on the recliner device that I mentioned before, right? And so they basically fed, by mouth, as well as they're fed through this thing, whatever they're doing, they probably didn't on them social media. Right? I see one of them was talking to a friend, right, using some teleconferencing kind of thing. And another one was just doing some stuff like him at the shopping and thing, and them change the color of their suit that they're wearing and all of that. So yeah. So when it goes out ship-wide, every one of the humans them who have been on their screens basically get a flash on them screen for say, these robots are dangerous, so if you see them, be careful of them and thing. Yeah, so a whole heap of hijinks going on, them running around the ship trying to find a way out of it, right? Because there is anything to do now because them thing there. Now, Eve, she decides that she just have to just send home Wally because Wally obviously, thing there. Because she couldn't find a plant on him, because she'd have looked for a plant on him, but she didn't find it. And so she's like, may I have to just send him home because I don't know why you said have there, Now, before she's able to activate a escape pod that she's gonna send him home into, right? One of the robots who's the first mate, right? So the auto being the autopilot, which is acting as a captain, has him second basically, in first mate robot, go for his name. They see because them, them a try hide and duck when him come. Them see him put the plant into the pod, set on self-destruct and send it out. Now, while Eve hide same way, while he sneak back into the pod, come see plant and he take up the plant and he's like, plant. And he, poor little Wally come like, he don't understand, say, hey, that gonna happen now. Gets inadvertently caught in the escape pod because it, it releases from the Starliner, heads out on its way to be self-destructed. Now, Eve have to find a way to catch up with him quickly, and this is in space, of course, and she's like, running after him, but she's, a little bit short and the pod explodes, right? Now, at that point, we see Wally in there get exploded It almost like, you wonder, eh, is he gone? You know? Only if you see Wally coming out with a fire extinguisher, using it as a way to propel himself in space. If you know anything about space, it's you're weightless, and you just need enough force to get you going in a direction. So some amount of hijinks something again, and both robots keep missing each other for a little while as they try to accelerate and slow down just in time to meet up, but always passing one another for a good little while, like about 2 or 3 times that happened. And then they catch up to one another and finally embrace. And again, parallel, to humans running, just picture 2 humans running up to one another and thus embracing. That's how it looked. And them spin around and all these things. Now, after all of that happens, I guess they decided to put a little joke on one of the other robots. There's this robot that is doing some repairs outside. Eve and Wally end up going back inside and inadvertently locking out this robot. Yeah, so them end up making a spoof, and that becomes the next movie, right? That tells half his story of how him get locked out and how him get back into the ship. But anyways, now Eve bring the plant now. Can I have the plant now, carry it back to the captain. Now, since the captain was basically given that prospect, that hope for being able to go to Earth, and basically started some research, like, oh, you always want to go on a epic adventure to somewhere, or you want to go to a country. I don't know why I'm talking like that. Anyways, you want to go to some country, right? And you say, boy, you want to find out what it is like there and how them dance and all these things. So, the captain got very into it and doing some research. It was almost like it get late because, of course, in space, the time kind of is almost dark all the while, but you have a program that is running on the Starliner that signals day and night. So it almost seems like him been researching right down to in the night. And when he sees Eve come now with the plant, he was overjoyed with the prospect of returning to Earth, even though he has never been there, as a human race, wanting to return. Now, Otto comes in, of course, and him see this, and he's like, give me the plant, Captain. And he's like, why? Because them get a no return directive, A113, right? And it was above classified. So basically, it was only for the autopilot. Yeah. Just think about that for a little while, as someone that is in tech, right? That not sound right. Sound like you just basically tell AI, say, listen, no matter what your humans want to do, don't listen to them. Do what you have to do to protect them, even if they want to do something otherwise, right? That's a recipe for disaster, okay? Yeah. And apparently, it showed the captain how we get the orders and thing, and yeah, apparently it's because they have no hope of fixing what they have done on planet Earth, right? Which is what the gentleman say in the film, right? And I must mention that they actually use live action footage in a non-live action movie. Just stating that, right? Yeah. So when time the captain there try to figure out what he has just seen, basically a mutiny have to start, right? Because Otto taking control of everything, and it execute electrocute, I should say, because Wally is still alive. But he gets electrocuted and get thrown with Eve down into a garbage chute, yeah, that takes them to the where the garbage is going to be thing there. Now, interestingly, the down there, interestingly, they have robots that are big giant robots that are similar to how Wall-E is designed, right? Doing the compacting and everything down there. And they're basically doing the same thing, compacting trash, and the trash gets put into an airlock, and then the airlock gets open and it gets sucked out into space. All right. Eve get caught up in one of the trash and almost get sucked out into space. She was able to get herself free and get Wally free. Wally is in shambles, Wally can barely manage, right? Now, the captain there try to figure out how I'm going to get Otto, get back at Otto and get out himself out of the situation that he's in. So him trick Otto with a holographic projection of the plant, right? Which Otto, believing that him have it in our possession, decide to confront him. So the captain jump, and I must mention that it's a massive, human, right? Because, yeah, he not have no bones and mostly fat, right? And he's clinging on basically onto Otto, which is like a steering wheel for the ship, right? No, while him find a way back now onto the ship deck, the captain's deck, to be able to signal to everybody for let them know that there's a mutiny on their hands, basically, right? Oh yeah, communicating with Wally and Eve for say them need to get to the hollow detector to put in the plant, right? Because they realize that they have the plant and thing. Of course, Otto realizing that now, try to avert all of that, right? And one whole heap of things go on. The ship come like it a turn over one at a time. All of the humans them fall out of their recliner seats and them start tumble over in there, right? There are some babies, them get tumbled over and thing. And I mentioned two humans that were basically taken out of them screen and things. So them start to observe the surroundings around them and realize, there's more to life than the screen where them a look on. And we see some babies basically like just falling out and rolling down there and thing, and them have to catch them basically. Yeah. The captain is able to find the manual override and deactivate Otto, right? And this is after him get flung onto him side and learning to stand up for the very first time. So, metaphor right there again, right? And learn to stand up for the very first time to the autopilot and him succeed. So, I mentioned that Wally got trapped in the mechanism that controls the holodeck because he was trying to get the plant into the location on the holodeck, and it basically squeezed him and thing, and you can gotta say almost dead, right? Half dead in and thing, and Eve comes to his rescue. They hyper jump to Earth, and when he reach Earth now and thing, Eve find back him garage, look for the parts them what she need for help for repair him and thing, and she quickly fix him up, give him a new memory chip because the memory chip was broken, and of course that meant that his personality has been erased. Now you can see Eve heartbroken about the whole thing. She gave Wally a kiss, which I did mention before that they shared a kiss. If I did, they it was like a little electrical static that goes between the two of them. And that seemed to restore him. Yeah. So both of them reunite along with the cockroach. You remember Hal, the cockroach? Yeah. And I guess the Axiom inhabitants, they take their first step on Earth, the captain teaching the babies them that, they would be responsible for growing plants and all of these things. Yeah. And then Wally and Eve, they have a baby. I'm just kidding. They didn't have a baby. They're robots. But yeah, that is my analysis of this incredibly interesting sci-fi film. A film about love, loneliness, and the future of humanity. You know, everybody needs a little bit of love. Even robots do. And in this case, it was love that saved humanity's future. So let us not forget that. These are some theories about unresolved mysteries and some plot points. Wall-E is such a simple story. It is deceptively so. That's how it can be defined. It is grounded around a lonely robot that has been cleaning a trash covered world, right? But it hides some dark ambiguities, right? There are some things that can be spun into many fan theories, right? And I didn't even realize how rich it was until I had to do this podcast. Why only one Wally survives, right? Wally seems to have cannibalized parts from hundreds of identical units, right? He is, however, the only survivor after 700 years. So, there are three things we can consider, right? Follow with me now, right? Lightning virus. So, Wally, we see him get struck several times by lightning. Now, we know that certain electrical instruments, things that run on electricity, they have certain capacity for electricity. There's no way that a robot like Wally would have the capacity to be able to withstand certain lightning strikes. So it's possible that for some weird reason, Wally was somehow able to survive one, right? The very first one that he got. And it basically granted him this ability to rewrite his instructions or perhaps, make him a self-repairing robot, right? Instead of just a robot that is able to just carry out his directive until his power cells or his solar array is depleted. Another theory is possibly robot suicide. We don't like talking about it, but we have to talk about it. The others could have become sentient, just like Wally, right? This particular model. And they became depressed because they were cleaning up endless garbage. And so they decided to stop recharging and eventually deplete them energy and cease to exist. the third one is a hive mind. So it's possible that all of the other Wallies are within this one, and they share this consciousness, this collective consciousness, you know, a pool of consciousness, right? And that's why for Wally, he was so intent on preserving Eve, right? Even though him never really understand certain things, but he was, he recognized that he had to preserve her, and that's why him have that mentality there to collect things, interesting things, you know? Yeah. All right. So number 2 on the mysteries list, right? Earth's true catastrophe. What was the cause? So the by and large BNL corporation, right? This is a corporation that controls all of the things that we're seeing in the film, right? They basically caused the planet to become this consumerism kind of thing. And essentially, they made a decision to go to space, right? To preserve humanity. So, 2 theories about this. A robot rebellion. Now, it's possible that Wally's virus could have spread, right? The same one I was mentioning before, causing a malfunctioning of the bots them, right? And instead of collecting the garbage, because probably that's what they were supposed to be doing. They were supposed to be collecting the garbage. They ended up accelerating destruction because the more need was there for them to work and to do what they were supposed to do, right? When I was watching this, having watched Rick and Morty, I remember that episode where Rick has a bot that basically passes butter, right? And that's all it does. And he's like, what is my purpose? Basically, he must say that to Rick, and Rick is like, to pass butter. And he's like, oh my God, So it's almost like the robots them rebelled because recognizing their sentience and recognizing what humanity is making them do, right? Because humanity seemed to have gone down the path of not caring how they treat anything, right? And they're been using the robots, right? And perhaps that's why Otto kept that message away from the captain then, because I worked with a different captain before, and he kept the message that them can't return to Earth, right? Not telling the captains them, the human captains them, and just acting in what it thinks is its best interest. Said, don't return to Earth because you basically, oh no, for treat Earth, no, for take care right. So why on a need to go back there and start over the process? Gonna probably start it over, and gonna probably do the same thing again and end up in the same position. So better to stay so, right? So maybe there are many sides to it. Maybe the robots them became cannibalistic, right? Started dismantling one another, right? In a brutal survival strategy. Maybe there was a robot war. Where am I going with that one? I'm not sure. Anyways, yeah, that's a quite interesting one, because we're not given much information as to what really happened. All right, so how is human reproduction possible on the axiom? Because I saw those babies and I'm like, and these humans, them can't even get up. So how them are gonna be able to reproduce. Yeah, we are big people who know what I'm talking about. So there are, they have been like that for a good little while. Them body hasn't been evolving, in the way it's supposed to in order to allow them to be able to do that, right? So more than likely they're using some future tech like cloning, or they're doing some artificial wombs, right? Some artificial insemination. So, maybe some of the humans might carry baby and then they take the babies when they reach a certain, or the fetus at a certain age, and incubate it until it reach maturity. And, yeah. So, I mean, I don't have much there. So there is also a possibility of a biblical analogy. You know, you have a figure that basically collect trash, right? And then have the key to life, right? The plant, right? So Wally we're talking about right here. And then the name Eve, right? Obviously is a biblical reference, right? And the axiom is like the ark, Noah's ark. So in some ways, there is some parallels there. I'm guessing probably the way how it's written, the film overall, and then that final scene where them return is the restoration of the garden, the earth. Now, BNL by and large cover up. This is the mystery that I really want to get to know. BNL CEO give a final message and admits failure, right? But want to hide this from actual humans. So what he did, he gave the message to the robots, to the AI, the autopilot. So I'm assuming that either when he gave this message, they recognized what was taking place, perhaps with the robot rebellion, perhaps with some kind of faction that was trying to stop by and large. And so they were trying to preserve their image even in the last moments, I guess, right? Because I don't even know where that CEO might have ended up. Perhaps he ended up on the same Starliner, or perhaps there are other Starliners out there, right? Trapped out there, I should say, because they wouldn't have known about it until they were given the directive to come back, or to find a plant that indicates that life can exist again on the planet after them pollute it so much, right? So obviously the humans then would have died out on planet Earth, right? The ones that were left on planet Earth who couldn't afford to go on these Starliner cruise or whatever it is, right? And so the Axiom survivors are the last remnants, right? And they are fully unaware of all of what would have happened up to when the captain find out said the autopilot was giving this message. Yeah. So I guess the only thing I can say is that Wally basically represent a grim look at all of the implications that come about with isolation and consumerism, and the fact that humans have given over their sovereignty to machines. Not to start talking about the Matrix again, but hey, it parallels there with the Matrix in the fact that these humans were basically being fed via their machinery that take them out. I mean, there's a part in the film where when all of the humans were being summoned to come outside and thing, one of them was on his recliner, basically. He was asleep, same way. And the recliner move out because it's a machine and it's acting on instructions. Move out of the room with him still asleep on it. Yeah. And it doesn't have care about what you might think because it believes it act in your best interest because you have given it control, perhaps too much control, which is something that we have to be aware of. We have to be aware of how much we have given to these systems. We have to not allow it to have so much control over who we are that it might cause us to fall from where we hope to see ourselves and what we hope for ourselves. Anyways, share your favorite Wall-E moments or theories. Put them in the comments. In this episode, we looked at Wall-E. We looked at how love and loneliness can often be something we all have to work through. The future of humanity is something we do together. We can't do it alone. No man is an island. We have to be able to work towards a better tomorrow for everyone. Because maybe it's not our generation. It might be quite a lot of generations down the line. As we saw with the way how you had different captains that came in, and each one, they just kept following the autopilot. Don't be that type of person, just following autopilot. Question things. Recognize things for what they are. The captain did his research and he realized that Earth is so good. Even though he had his doubts about how they were going to be able to reclaim Earth, the spark of adventure and wanting more fueled his curiosity and allowed him to overcome the machines. In this case, the corporation that fostered this kind of discontent with Earth. And two little robots, they had to defy the logic that they were given. Wally and Eve, they had to defy their directives. And we saw that play out very well. Now, I'm not saying that it's all cases that you're going to be going rogue and doing whatever you want and rebelling, but we have to measure that with what is best for all. Not just for few, not just for the mega rich. It has to go for the poor, the disabled, people who don't have certain luxuries that some of us might have. So if you haven't watched this film and it hasn't vibed with you the way how it has with me, it's understandable. But if it has, please remember to share your thoughts and continue to keep listening. I see you. I feel you. And you're the fuel that continues to drive this mission into space and everywhere else. It's not just sci-fi space stuff that we do on this podcast. We do a whole bunch of stuff. So you can go and take a listen to all the previous episodes and then come back and listen to this one if you choose. That is it. That brings us to the end of this episode. Our voyage through the universe of sci-fi television continues, and the next destination is 5,000 downloads. Your support keeps this mission alive. Follow, share, and let's keep exploring together. Until next time, stay curious. This content is CAN-credentialed, which means you can report instances of harassment, abuse, or other harm on their hotline at 617-249-4255 or on their website at creatoraccountabilitynetwork.org. And there you have it. Another thrilling chapter in our voyage through the universe of sci-fi television. We're charting a course towards 5,000 downloads. And your encouragement helps power the blah, 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 blah.